One.
Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to the 12 Steps in 12 Hours. I'm Right On Ron, and this is Bobby R. Today we are going through all 12 steps. What I've done is I don't speak on behalf of AA at all. These are my opinions and my opinions only. My sobriety date is November the 3rd, 1988. So I've been helping others for 30 years and working the big book and studying the big book, and so has Bobby. So I'm going to explain how this is going to work. We have the front sheet. It's right here. It talks about the spiritual malady, and it talks about the disease alcoholism, and I'm going to explain it to you. So that's on the very first sheet. I think there's I'm not sure, 34 pages. So here we go. So the very first part, maybe if you want to hold this up, Bobby, is just so people can see it. The very first part is disease alcoholism. And what that is in the big book, it talks about having a two-part disease or having symptoms. And they talk about having two symptoms. The two symptoms is the obsession of the mind, and then followed by the allergy of the body. So what happens is I drink. The more I drink, the more I have to drink. And then it just becomes a certain cycle. So really, there's three symptoms. There's the spiritual, there's the mind, and then there's the body. So I'm going to explain this to you. So right at the very beginning, before I even think about alcohol, something happens, and it's called the spiritual malady, and it's right over here on this part right here, over in this part right here. It's called the spiritual malady. The very first thing that happens is I get irritable, restless, discontent, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. But I'm always thinking about picking up that drink. I'm irritable, restless, discontent. I'm unhappy, so I'm irritable, restless, discontent. And how that transforms is into anxiety, worry, fear, ego, lonely, pride, jealousy. It just goes on and on. But what we're really talking about is spiritual pain. You're in spiritual pain and you're going to feel it. Okay, so that's the very first thing. So we get a warning before we even think about alcohol. We get a warning, and that warning is that spiritual malady, and you're unhappy. So it's really important to know that you're unhappy. That's the very first part. So from there, I go to the thinking part, the obsession of the mind. The obsession of the mind is where every thought over exceeds that one thought. Okay, so my mind's going, and I'm thinking about alcohol, I'm thinking, and if we do that long enough, we are going to drink. And that's the second symptom, is the allergy of the body. So once I start, I can't stop, I can't control it, I'm going to drink. It's just going to be one big circle, and it's just one big circle from the spiritual malady to the thinking to the drinking, and then it goes right back to the very beginning. So it all starts with the spiritual malady, being unhappy, and I think it says somewhere there 97% of people live in the spiritual malady and they're unhappy, and 3% of people are actually working the 12 steps and they're happy and they're in their hearts. So okay, let's start from the very beginning here. Let's turn the page to this next page. At the beginning it says my website, rightonron.com. You're going to use glasses. This is what happens if you don't drink. You stay sober, you're going to get older. Anyways, okay, here's my website. It's rightonron.com or loveandservice.ca, and you can get a hold of either myself or Bobby at any time, anywhere in the world. We're willing to help you. Okay, and we can help you with the 12 steps. So I have at the, so anything you see in brackets is my opinion, what I've written on these sheets. And what is written on these sheets is I have the things that I've underlined from the big book I find is really important, and I pieced this all together so people would understand what the 12 steps are really actually about. Okay, so if you ever see brackets, it's my opinion only. Everything else that we're going to be reading is from the big book, and I usually tell you what page it's from. Okay, so there you go. So it all starts with the program is the 12 steps in the big book, up to page 103. Now why I say it's 103 is because step 12 ends at page 103. Okay, so the program, which is the 12 steps, ends at 103. Okay, the fellowship is the meetings of a group of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope. So the fellowship is the meetings, the program is the 12 steps from the big book. The 12 by 12 is only used once you have completed the 12 steps from the big book. So the 12 steps, you can't actually do the 12 steps from the 12 by 12 because it was written like 13 years later and it's actually not the program. So there's that. And I don't actually use the 12 by 12. I go with the program that was first introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous. It's worked for millions of people, and I'm just here to help put the pieces together to make it a lot easier and simple for you. The principles they talk about and mention in the traditions are the 12 steps. So they talk about practicing these principles in all our affairs. We're talking about the big book. And we're talking about the 12 steps. So if you ever hear anybody in the meeting saying, "Oh, practice these principles in all our affairs," they're talking about the 12 steps. The spiritual principles, you'll hear about the spiritual principles. They're like honesty, open-mindedness, willingness. And there's 12 of them. But that's the spiritual principles. Okay, so it says everything in brackets is not in the big book. That's my opinion. I've already explained that. So grab a pencil and a notepad and take some notes and listen to my audio or this video and follow it from my sheets together on the spiritual melody and steps 1, 2, and 3, and then explain it when you're finished and tell it to your sponsor. So what we're going to do is we're going through the first 3 steps. We've gone through the spiritual melody. Now we're going through steps 1, 2, and 3. Take a couple of notes, but you have to answer 4 questions at the end of this, okay? And all I want is like 1 paragraph, 1 sentence. That's it, okay? So kind of listen to what I'm talking about when it comes to the steps. Okay, so Bobby, can you start us off now?
The story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. This book has become the basic text, study and read it daily. Forward to the first edition, we of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. Okay,
can I just mention something here? It says 1, why they wrote the big book. There's 2 reasons why they wrote the big book. And 1 is to show you precisely how you have recovered is the main purpose of this book. The second one is coming up, but it'll talk about the main the main purpose of this book is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself. So there's the 2 reasons why they wrote the big book. To enable you to find a power greater than yourself and to show you precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. So go ahead, Bobby.
Okay, forward to the second edition. Prior to his journey to Akron, the broker Bill W. had worked hard with many alcoholics on the theory that only an alcoholic could help an alcoholic. But he had succeeded only in keeping sober himself. The broker had gone to Akron on a business venture which had collapsed, leaving him greatly in fear and that he might start drinking again. He suddenly realized that in order to save himself, he must carry his message to another alcoholic. That alcoholic turned out to be the Akron physician. This physician, Dr. Bob, had repeatedly tried spiritual means to resolve his alcoholic dilemma, but had failed.
Okay, I'm going to stop there just 1 second, Bobby. As this physician, Dr. Bob, had repeatedly tried spiritual means to resolve his alcoholic dilemma, but had failed. Dr. Bob was really religious and very spiritual. He couldn't stay sober on that alone. So that tells me, for me to go to church, and that's all I need to do, isn't enough. Okay, so I just wanted to throw that in there. Okay, so go ahead, Bobby.
But when the broker gave him Dr. Silkworth's description of alcoholism and its hopelessness, the physician began to pursue the spiritual remedy for his malady with a willingness he had never before been able to muster. He sobered, never to drink again, up to the moment of his death in 1950. This seemed to prove that one alcoholic could affect another. Yet it is our great hope that all those who have as yet found no answer may begin to find one in the pages of this book and will presently join us on the high road to a new freedom.
Okay, this is the doctor's opinion, and it goes like this. In the statement, he confirms that we who have suffered alcoholic torture must believe that the body of the alcoholic, which we've already explained about the mind and the body, the obsession of the mind, the allergy of the body, is quite abnormal as his mind. It is not satisfied us to be told that we could not control our drinking just because we were maladjusted to life, that we're in full flight from reality, or we're outright mental defectives. These things were true to some extent. In fact, to a considerably extent with some of us. But we are sure that our bodies were a second as well. In our belief, any picture of the alcoholic that leaves out this physical factor is incomplete. Though we work on our solution on a spiritual as well as altruistic plane, we favor hospitalization for the alcoholic who is still jittery or befogged. That means detox, people. So if they're really jittery, they're really shaking, let's get them to detox, let's get them to a hospital because they need professional help. More than often not, it is imperative that a man's brain be cleared before he is approached, and that he has a better chance of understanding and accepting what we have to offer. A man's brain needs to be cleared before he is approached. That tells me I know exactly when to help out the alcoholic. I can help out anybody first thing in the morning. I want to talk to the alcoholic before he even picks up that drink the next morning. That's the time to help out an alcoholic. The truth is I've been doing this for 30 years. Can I help out anybody who's drinking at the time? The answer is no. I need to help them first thing in the morning when their brain is cleared. That's when I want to talk to you. And that's when I actually want to work these steps with you, is the first thing in the morning. Okay, go ahead, Bobby.
Though we work
No, they believe.
They believe in themselves and still more in the power which pulls chronic alcoholics back from the gates of death. Of course, an alcoholic ought to be freed from his physical craving for liquor, and this often requires a definite hospital procedure before psychological measures can be of maximum benefit. We believe, and so suggested a few years ago, that the action of alcohol on these chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy, and that the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker. These allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all, and once having formed the habit and found they cannot break it, once having lost their self-confidence, their reliance upon things human, their problems pile up on them and become astonishingly difficult to solve. Their ideals must be grounded in a power greater than themselves if they are to recreate their lives.
Okay, I'm going to start here. Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The cessation is so inclusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot after time differentiate the truth from the false. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there. They can't tell the differentiate the truth from the false. Little did I know in all these years is I didn't know where the truth and the false was. Today I know very clear where the truth and the false is. The truth has always been within my heart, and the false has always been in my head. So if I've asked myself over the last 30 years, anything I ask from my heart is telling me the truth, but my mind always lies to me. So that's the difference between the truth and the false and what they're talking about. Okay, to them the alcoholic seems the only normal one. They are irritable, restless, discontent. So when I talk to people, they're new, they're in the irritable, restless, discontent, they're in the spiritual malady. Unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort, which comes at once by taking a few drinks, which see others taken with impunity after they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, the phenomena craving develops. They pass through a well-known stages of a spree, emerge and remorseful, with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeated over and over, and unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of its recovery. I'm going to talk about this psychic change. Psychic change and a spiritual experience are the same thing. What that is, it talks about, as we're going to read, is that no human power could give us that. And I can't either, but I can lead you to it. And it's to your heart. This is where we're going with this work, people. Okay, so with that being said, I am going to continue. On the other hand, as strange as seems to those who do not understand, once a psychic change has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed who had so many problems he despaired of ever solving them, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol. The only effort necessary being that he required to follow a few simple rules. The rules are the 12 steps. One feels that something more than human power is needed to produce the essential psychic change. So something more than human power, that's what I was talking about. Is I'm going to, through all this work, is lead you to your heart, and get you into your heart, keep you in the heart, through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Go ahead, Bobby.
One feels that something more...
No, all these.
All these and many others have one symptom in common. They cannot start drinking without developing the phenomenon of craving. This phenomenon, as we have suggested, may be the manifestation of an allergy which differentiates these people and sets them apart as a distinct entity. It has never been, by any treatment with which we are familiar, permanently eradicated. The only relief we have to suggest is entire abstinence. The general opinion seems to be that most chronic alcoholics are doomed. He accepted the plan outlined in this book. And that was William D. Silkworth, Bill Wilson's doctor. Okay, with that, I have just a few things right here. An allergy. So we talked about the allergy is a normal reaction to something. An obsession is when everything oversees that one thought. The first obsession of the alcoholic is that we think, it's from our minds, that we can be our own solution. So we think we have the solution here, but it's not. The solution's actually in our heart. So we're so wrong, is what I was saying. So whenever you hear power in the big book, it means God. So just to let you know that, anytime you read the big book, power means God. And powerless means lacking God, not listening to God. So it says, I'm going to get to that in the first step. So a malady is a sickness, an illness, a disease. Okay, so we're going to take a small break right now.